Welcome back, Pack Brothers. Last week, Halo Shadows of Reach was released, and as a fan of Troy Denning's work, I've already finished it, and I'm pleased to say that it was a fantastic read. Being an alien-obsessed nerd, I'm pleased to say that Mr. Denning did an amazing job of fleshing out the lore behind the Banished, and surprisingly, a couple other Covenant Remnant groups. With that in mind, I compiled a breakdown of the Banished's story arc throughout the book. But to be clear, this will only be covering the Banished. So if you're looking for an entire breakdown of the book, then I suggest you wait next week for Halo Canon to release a full breakdown of Shadows of Reach. I think this goes without saying, but a spoiler warning is in effect. If you do not want this book to be spoiled, then turn off this video now. I mean it. Turn the video off now, go to your local bookstore, pick up the book, and read it and enjoy it for yourself. You have been warned. I do not want to see complaints about me spoiling the novel for you. For everyone else though, this is the status of the Banished in Halo Shadows of Reach. I'll begin with the short story found within the Walmart edition of Shadows of Reach, titled Sacrifice. This story is set sometime before the book, based on the arc, where Aatrox is still fighting his war against the UNSC Spirit of Fire, where a brute chieftain, Minus, is leading a Banished strike team on none other than the Forerunner Dreadnought itself. Yes, we finally get a closure to this one plot hole that has been seriously bugging me since Halo 3. Anyways, it seems that after the events of Awakening the Nightmare, the Banished managed to salvage access codes from the ruins of High Charity. These are the Forerunner Dreadnought's access codes, and Aatrox is interested in what lies within the Dreadnought, so he dispatched Minus to retrieve it. Minus employs a Kikyar slicer named Itka. It seems that Jackals were employed by the Banished, and they were brought to the Ark. It's a shame we weren't able to see them in Halo Wars 2. But I digress. Anyways, he's accompanied by a squadron of brutes and a squadron of elites, led by Okoro Vagadoon. For those of you unaware, this Sangheili was in the Halo Infinite demo as an assassination target in the main HUD. I love how Troy employs this minor find into this story. Moving on, Minus also employs his second-in-command, Captain Koros, as a guide within the Dreadnought. Not only because he was an escort during his time in the Covenant, but because he was the nephew of none other than Tartarus, and served under the High Prophet of Truth himself. And it seems that after the Arbiter killed Tartarus, he deserted and fled on one of the moons of Doisak, where he was recruited to the Banished after the war. Like I said, this is a minor detail, but I love that we get a connection between him and Tartarus. But back on topic. While Koros is leading the group within the further confines of the key ship, the group is suddenly ambushed by a mysterious foe. After quickly killing these attackers, they are in disbelief to discover that these are brutes. Covenant brutes. That is right. After landing on the Ark during the events of Halo 3, Truth apparently left a garrison of brutes to guard the Dreadnought, and it seems that the ship had enough provisions to last decades. So now, these brutes, the brutes that we fought in Halo 3, now stand between Minus and Aatrox's prize. They eventually managed to reach their objective, but after being overwhelmed by Covenant brutes, Koros and many others sacrificed themselves with only Minus and Okoro left with their prize. I'll go over what this objective Aatrox was after in a little bit. All in all, a great short story. Not necessarily a huge factor in the overall story of Shadows of Reach, but it's a great way to solve the mystery behind the key ship, and bringing back remnants of the Covenant loyalists from Halo 3 was a surprising twist, but a welcome one. For the record though, this story wasn't written by Troy Denning, but by someone within 343 Industries itself. Now we are set into the main story. The official timeline is set 3 months before the opening of the book, in 2559, where we see that the Banished have another Covenant remnant group aligned with the faction. This group is none other than the Keepers of the One Freedom, another Jirohane-led faction that some of you may remember from Halo Last Light and Halo Retribution. This group is led by a similarly noticeable character, the Dokab Caster. These guys still believe in the Great Journey, and are notable to even have humans in their ranks. And it seems that they took a really hard hit following Retribution, with Caster being referred to as the last Dokab. This implies that the other Dokabs were killed at some point between the events of Retribution and Shadows. This fractured state is most likely the cause behind the Keepers joining the Banished, and coincidentally, this happened before Atriox left the Ark a year and a half prior to the book, and more noticeably, 6 months before Cortana, known to the Banished as the Apparition, initiated the created uprising. But back on track. Caster and his Banished advisor, a former Silent Shadow named Inslam Gadogai, received a transmission from a big bad brute that is set to appear in Halo Infinite, War Chief Escharum himself. And here, we learn early on that he was Atriox's former mentor, or Descalo. So, Escharum was like the Qui-Gon Jinn to Atriox's Obi-Wan? Yep, I can definitely get behind that. This is but one of many jaw-dropping moments for me when I read this book firsthand, and trust me, there's a lot. Moving on, it seems that by some unknown means, Escharum received a message from Atriox on the Ark. This message revealed that the objective Minos was looking for on the Forerunner Dreadnought was 3 slip-space crystals that Tartarus recovered during the events of another Halo novel, Halo First Strike, and he summons the other Banished in the wider galaxy to join his fight on the Ark. But the only way to reach him is through a slip-space portal hidden beneath a mountain on the glass world of Reach. To ensure this happens, Escharum dispatches the Keepers, led by Caster, along with 2 other Jirohane clans, the Legion of the Corpse Moon, led by the hot-headed Deucalion, and the Ravaged Tusk, led by the more level-headed chieftain, Ballas. These 3 are to divide their forces in order to find the portal under the mountain and contact Escharum in order to join Atriox on the Ark. But once Caster, Deucalion, and Ballas arrived on Reach with their forces, they found human refugees looking to resettle the charred colony. The Banished mockingly refer to these settlers as Glassbreakers, and wage a bloody onslaught against them in the Epos continent, capturing numerous bases and taking more and more ground. But of course, as per typical Jirohane fashion, Deucalion and Ballas began warring amongst themselves, vying to gain more resources as a way of earning favor from Atriox once he returned. Though they would call it a disagreement and claim to be holding the bases as a way of securing the portal once it is found. But in reality, by the start of the book, it's only the Keepers that are looking for the portal, not out of loyalty for Atriox, but to find the Ark and initiate the Great Journey. After more than 3 months of searching, the Keepers are able to narrow down their search to the Highland Mountains. But during their mission, the Keepers discovered a stealth pelican and found that Spartan Blue Team are now on Reach. While tracking and disabling their pelican, they are forced to retreat due to the ongoing feud between Deucalion and Ballas. After scouring the crash site, they discovered that the humans had mining equipment, and Caster deduced that they might know about the portal and may seek its destruction. So in order to expedite the search and stop these Spartans, Caster arranges a parley between the 2 Banished chieftains. The last Dokab informs them that he is close to finding the portal under the mountain, and needs their clan's aid in discovering the artifact. Though Deucalion and Ballas found common ground in ending their squabbling, they ultimately refused to contribute their forces in the search, claiming that they still need to hold the planet in the event of any more Spartan reinforcements arriving on Reach. But Castor realized he didn't need the chieftains to fight the portal. Since he thought the Spartans were seeking to destroy the portal, he believed that he could follow them to it. And so they did. They led him to the smoldering ruins of Castle Base. They dug underneath the base and finally found the Forerunner ship that lied beneath the UNSC outpost, and their true prize, the slipspace portal. Once they uncovered it, Castor contacted Escharum, and the war chief arrived shortly thereafter with his intrusion corvette, and with its reinforcements, they secured the portal from the Spartans and the settlers. Through one of Castor's human followers, they activate the site, and a massive slipspace portal is activated on the ceiling, and not long afterwards, a banished lich emerges from the portal and descends onto the landing pad. It offloads a mob of banished lieutenants and seasoned warriors, until at last, the War Master departed his ship. As he debriefed Escharum, Castor and the Keepers eagerly stormed the lich, but Atriox informs the Dokab that he changed his orders, leaving his forces on the Ark behind in order to fulfill a new mission. But in the end, Castor deserts the Banished and recruits/kidnaps Inslan Garugai, while the Banished withdrew from the Ark as Cortana dispatched a Guardian in order to investigate the portal's activation. Unbeknownst to the Keepers, however, they've been infiltrated by none other than Veta Lopez and her ferrets. In fact, they've been around throughout the entire book, with Veta even helping Blue Team on one occasion. Apparently, after 2 years, she was presumed dead or missing in action, but she was simply being a double agent within the Keepers. This may explain why the Keepers were in such disarray that they had no choice but to join the Banished a year before the book even started. But Veta's motivations in infiltrating the Keepers at this point remains unknown. So that's the Banished arc within Shadows of Reach. With the conclusion, we know a few things. 1. Atriox has left the arc permanently in pursuit of a new task. I have a strong feeling that it has something to do with Zeta Halo and this mysterious auditorium thing. But one question has plagued my thoughts. Who has Atriox left in charge of his forces on the Ark? My best guess that it's probably one of his trusted warlords. Perhaps Pavium, or maybe even one of his lieutenants, Colony. Though one thing kinda bugs me. It's implied that in the last half of the chapter, that Atriox hates humans, or at the very least doesn't like seeing them. Before this book, he was implied to have an open attitude to allow all species to join the Banished, even humans. I guess the only acceptable reason for his hostility towards humans came from Halo Wars 2, with the humans of the Spirit of Fire undermining his activities on the Ark. Also, I know we're not getting a Halo Wars 3 anytime soon, but taking Atriox out of the equation on the Ark is a little bit too convenient for me. It raises more questions than answers. From what the Banished reveal trailer and the demo implied, it sounded as if the Banished thought that Atriox was dead. That made sense given the fact that the Enduring Conviction was the only way it could contact the other Banished fleets. But now that he's back, it's a little more confusing than those trailers implied. Ah well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what 343 does with this in the long run. Second, the Keepers have broke away from the Banished and are now on the Ark. Castor will most likely use his human subordinates in order to find and activate the Halos. while fighting the Banished and the Spirit of Fire's crew. But I'm sure Veta and her ferrets are undoubtedly trying to put a stop to his lunacy. And before I close off, I want to mention that there are 2 new weapons and vehicles that the Banished employ in this book: the Energy Axe and the Griever Bomber. Yes, for some of you who have been praying for an Energy Axe to be canon, your prayers have been answered. And yes, I'm looking at you, Forsaken Shame. And this Griever is an interesting type of bomber. Not much is known about it, but I really hope we see it in Infinite in some way. Hopefully as a flyable vehicle, or at least used in a cutscene. We need more Banished stuff. Please. But to sum it up, these are great additions. Oh, and the brutes that Atriox brought back from the Ark had mini energy maces. That's amazing. I hope we see these in Halo Infinite. And another thing, Tavawan skirmishers appeared early on in the book, fighting against Blue Team during the Battle of New Mohawks. It's unknown which Banished clan they're affiliated with, but I imagine it's either the Legion of the Corpse Moon or the Ravaged Tusk. With their debut in Halo Reach, it seems only fitting that they should reappear here, don't you think? And finally, from what the book described it to be, the Banished fleet is much larger than we were led to believe. It's stated early on in the book that the Banished fleet on Reach consisted of Escherum's corvette, a handful of destroyers, and surprisingly, a supercarrier. Yes, you heard me correctly. The Banished now have their claws on one of the most powerful ships in Halo. I've read this a dozen times now, and even I'm still in disbelief. It's never stated though whether or not this is a CSO class supercarrier, the carrier type from Halo Reach, or when it was acquired by the Banished. Though I can speculate that it was within the 1-year gap that Atriox left for the Ark. For it was stated that the Enduring Conviction was the most powerful ship in the Banished, and that was just a CAS class assault carrier. Regardless, by even having a supercarrier, the Banished seems to be in a much better position than the UNSC is, despite being also on the run from Cortana and her Guardians. So anyways, that's the status of the Banished in Shadows of Reach. I loved how it fleshed out the Banished's makeup. We could certainly guess that it was a bunch of different clans and legions, but to see that they operate independently in a lot of ways is fascinating. It makes them more like a confederacy of pirates and warlords, though some plots remained unanswered, like what happened to Deucalion and Ballas after the parley, though I can venture a guess that they likely died during a battle on Reach. Though I discussed this with Halo Canon, and I theorize also that they could appear in Infinite as mini-bosses or perhaps even assassination targets, like Akoro Vagadoon. That would be a great way to connect Shadows of Reach with Infinite. But all in all, I give Shadows of Reach a 9.5 out of 10. It's a great lore dump for all you Banished fans out there, including myself. But what did you guys think of the new lore introduced here? Are you guys reading Shadows of Reach? What are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like this video, hit that like and subscribe button. And until next time guys, may Atriox's eyes watch down upon you all.